Welcome back to Superbly Said, Advanced English Vocabulary and Phrases.
Yeah, great to be here.
Today, we are looking at a comprehensive English learning slide deck from SpeakDuo, designed to teach advanced conversational idioms and promote the platform's video call practice features.
And, you can go to SpeakDuo.com to meet new people from around the world who are practicing English on video calls to become more confident with their English speaking abilities.
Exactly. But let's jump straight into the idioms for these advanced learners. The current presentation of idioms offers clear baseline definitions, but it misses the opportunity to explore the nuanced comparative context that advanced learners crave.
Yeah, absolutely. When we look at how this is built, the primary weakness is that the provided examples for phrases like go down the drain, or go through the motions, or cut corners, they're perfectly functional, but they operate completely in isolation.
Right, just totally on their own.
Exactly. For an audience of advanced English learners preparing for high-stakes communication, simply providing a single definition and a basic sentence fails to show how these expressions differ from similar idioms in a professional or academic environment.
Yeah. Is there a risk that focusing just on a basic, isolated translation overlooks the cultural and, the emotional weight these phrases carry?
There absolutely is. So the suggestion here is to introduce the concept of comparative analysis for each phrase, explaining the nuanced differences between similar alternatives, and upgrade the contextual examples to reflect complex real-world scenarios.
We really need to get into the concrete examples to see how this fundamentally transforms the lesson,
I completely agree. Let's look at the very first phrase in the deck, which is to go down the drain. Right now, the material just defines it as a loss. But what if we explicitly compared it to a phrase like fall through the cracks?
Oh, wow, that is a brilliant comparison. Because when you just give a learner a noun and a verb, it's a bit like assembling flat-pack furniture.
Yeah, totally.
You take the pieces, attach them together, and the sentence just stands there, perfectly functional but rigid. But advanced fluency isn't rigid, it's incredibly murky. Going down the drain implies a complete, permanent loss of resources.
Right, it's an investment failing.
Exactly. But falling through the cracks just means something was accidentally overlooked. And, it might actually still be salvageable.
Spot on. And if we frame the example sentence as a high-level professional interaction, the learner grasps that immediately. You could provide an example like a difficult conversation with a boss.
Like what, exactly?
Like, I worked on the quarterly forecast presentation for weeks, and when the client canceled, it all went down the drain. You can practically feel the finality and frustration in that sentence, which anchors the meaning.
I can definitely see the pedagogical value there. But I do want to push back just slightly on this approach.
Sure, go ahead.
Is there a risk that introducing multiple similar but different alternatives might actually overwhelm a learner? Like, if they are just trying to memorize the primary phrase for an upcoming exam, aren't we throwing entirely too much vocabulary at them at once?
It's a very valid concern, and, instructional overload is a real danger. However, I'd argue that comparative learning actually anchors the definition much more firmly in the adult learner's mind.
Because they see the contrast?
Exactly. By understanding what a phrase is not, the true meaning comes into much sharper focus. It gives their brain a filing system built on contrast. Let's look at another concrete example from the deck. Dig your heels in.
Okay, so the nuance there is stubbornness.
Right, now compare that to stand your ground.
Oh, that's fascinating. What I love about comparing digging your heels in to standing your ground is the emotional baggage attached to the language.
Totally.
Like, if I tell my boss I stood my ground during a vendor negotiation, I'm a hero, right? I defended our margins. But if I tell her I dug my heels in, I'm just being stubborn and flexible and difficult.
Exactly. And if this SpeakDuo deck doesn't teach that specific emotional weight, they are essentially setting their students up for workplace disasters.
Right, so the concrete example for the deck should highlight that friction. Something like, when asked to change the project plans at the last minute, she dug her heels in and refused to compromise, which frustrated the entire team.
Yes, it demonstrates the negative consequence perfectly. We can do the exact same thing with go through the motions. If we compare it to phoning it in, we reveal a subtle but really vital difference.
Let me think about that. Both mean a lack of enthusiasm. right?
They do, but going through the motions emphasizes the mechanical, physical completion of a routine, whereas phoning it in implies a deliberate, almost disrespectful lack of effort.
Ah, I see.
We could format the concrete example as a model response to an IELTS Speaking Part 2 question about a time the learner felt uninspired. For instance, I sometimes go through the motions when I have to attend long online meetings. I am physically clicking through the slides and nodding, but my mind is entirely elsewhere.
That gives the learner a highly specific, reproducible template for a standardized test. Let's do one more to really solidify the strategy. To keep a lid on something.
This is a great one. The baseline definition is just to keep a secret. But if we compare it to sweep it under the rug, the nuance just explodes.
Because sweeping something under the rug implies hiding a mistake, right? Or something shameful.
Exactly. Keeping a lid on something is about actively keeping a situation under control or managing information proactively. It's about containment, not necessarily guilt.
So a concrete example could be, we had to keep a lid on the upcoming merger until the official press release was finalized.
Spot on. That distinction is absolutely critical for someone navigating a corporate environment. By explicitly mapping out these boundaries, the advanced learner isn't just memorizing definitions, they are mastering the precise application of the language.
Building on that point, once we elevate the nuance of how we teach these phrases, we have to look closely at how we evaluate the learner's understanding.
Yeah, absolutely.
The existing breakout room discussion prompts are far too open-ended and fail to rigorously confirm the learner's true grasp of the material.
Yes, the core weakness in the second half of the deck is that simply instructing learners on a slide to discuss the previous expressions with your partners relies entirely on self-guided practice.
It's incredibly passive.
Totally passive. It doesn't actively verify if they understand the specific triggers for situations where all hell breaks loose, or what it truly means to dig your heels in. You are basically trusting that two learners who are both still mastering the language will magically correct each other's subtle, nuanced mistakes in a breakout room.
Which realistically almost never happens, you know? So the suggestion here is to integrate a highly structured, multiple-choice quiz module into the lesson plan that uses detailed, robust definitions to actively challenge the learner, complete with built-in reflection time and immediate reinforcement.
Right.
Right now, the lesson is basically giving them the keys to a high-performance car and just pointing at a wide-open field. My suggestion is to build a proper, rigorous driving course with clearly marked cones to test their actual handling of these idioms under pressure.
That is a phenomenal analogy. Structuring the environment is what forces the brain to perform active recall. But how do we design these cones? Like, what does a rigorous multiple-choice question actually look like for advanced idioms?
Well, the concrete execution is everything here. We need to structure the quiz with clear option A, option B, and option C announcements. More importantly, we have to repeat the target phrase frequently so the learner stays incredibly focused on what they are defining, rather than getting lost in the vocabulary of the answers.
Okay, that makes sense. We'll actually do a live demonstration of this exact quiz format at the very end of this critique, so listeners can hear exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah, we'll run through all the idioms. But before we get to the quiz, that concept of building confidence brings us perfectly to the final major piece of the slide deck, the business objective.
Right, the promotional side of things.
Exactly. The promotional material for the SpeakDuo Pro 7-day free trial and its AI feedback features feels awkwardly bolted onto the end of the document rather than integrated into the user's learning journey.
It really does. The glaring weakness here is that the slides advertising the AI feedback specifically for vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation show incredibly generic, almost elementary examples.
Yeah, like what?
They show a mock-up of the AI correcting the pronunciation of the word yeah, or fixing highly disorganized basic spoken language. This creates a massive disconnect. It completely ignores the rich, advanced, deeply complex idioms the user just spent the entire lesson studying.
It's jarring, honestly. The suggestion to fix this is to weave the product's core features directly into the climax of the lesson by showing exactly how the AI feedback engine would help a learner master today's specific target phrases.
Okay, so tying it right back to the content.
Right? Seamlessly connecting the material's educational value to its commercial goal transforms the ad from a frustrating interruption into a natural, profoundly helpful next step.
That makes total sense from a marketing perspective. But how might this look in practice within an educational deck? What are the concrete examples of integration?
Well, instead of a generic slide about basic grammar, you show a beautifully designed mock AI feedback screen actively correcting a student's attempt to use the phrase leap to someone's defense.
Oh, okay.
Maybe the student said, "I jumped for her defense during the meeting." The AI screen highlights that sentence and elegantly corrects it to, consider saying, "I leaped to her defense."
Oh, that is so much stronger. It shows the platform catching the exact kind of micro errors, like using jumped for instead of leaped to, that completely terrify advanced learners.
Exactly.
It proves that the AI isn't just for beginners trying to find the right verb tense, It's a high-level polishing tool.
Think about the friction in the user journey. If I just learn the phrase, pull a fast one on someone, I am probably terrified to use it at work, because if I get the preposition wrong, I might inadvertently offend a colleague.
Right. The stakes are high.
The AI feature is the antidote to that fear. If you show the AI refining awkward phrasing around these specific idioms, you aren't just selling a feature, you're selling a safety net for everything they just learned.
Building on that point, we can apply this exact same strategy to the platform's community features. SpeakDuo is pitching the ability to meet new people from around the world on video calls.
Yeah, which is currently just a bullet point at the end of the deck.
Exactly. But what if we position it as the ultimate solution for practicing the nuanced workplace conversations we discussed earlier in the lesson?
Oh, yes. You tie the platform's core feature directly to the learner's immediate goal.
You tell the learner, now that you know the difference between digging your heels in and standing your ground, the absolute best way to master that emotional nuance is to practice it with real people on our video calls before you have to use it with your actual boss.
That's brilliant.
It proves the app's worth instantly. It says, we gave you the theory, now here's the laboratory to test it safely.
That entirely shifts the dynamic. When you integrate the value proposition that deeply into the pedagogy, the user doesn't feel like they are being sold to. They feel like they are being equipped. And that is exactly what a premium language platform should be doing.
Absolutely. Okay, so earlier we promised to show exactly how to build that proper driving course for these idioms.
Yes, the rigorous multiple-choice quiz module. Let's conduct a quiz at the end here with the options being announced as Option A, Option B, and Option C while repeating the relevant phrase.
And to the audience listening, feel free to pause the critique here if you need to think about the answer before we reveal it.
Okay, let's dive in. Question 1. What is the best definition for the expression to go down the drain?
Is it option A, to be completely and totally wasted, ruined, or permanently lost without absolutely any real chance of full recovery?
Or option B, to efficiently and correctly successfully ignore all incredibly difficult professional project management instructions?
Or option C, to systematically, completely organize a remarkably complicated corporate legal process into easily manageable new bins?
Feel free to pause the critique here if you need to think about the answer.
And the correct answer is option A. To go down a drain means to be completely and totally wasted or permanently lost. Remember that example of the client forecast?
Exactly. Okay, question 2. How is the phrase to go through the motions accurately defined? Option A, to completely successfully, firmly establish an incredibly secure electronic connection within a complicated network now.
Option B, to actively do a highly specific task, completely mechanically and absolutely entirely without real interest or effort.
Or, option C, to actively, physically detach a remarkably heavy wooden object from its original metal frame to secretly access a room.
Go ahead and pause the critique here if you need a moment.
The answer is option B. To go through the motions is doing a task completely mechanically, without real interest, like mindlessly clicking through those online meeting slides.
Spot on. Next up, question 3. If someone says, all hell breaks loose, what exactly does that mean?
Is it option A? To completely suddenly experience a remarkably massive drop in your physical stamina directly following a hard sprint.
Option B. A thoroughly detailed and exceptionally complex investigation successfully launched into a severe corporate error today.
Or option C. A highly specific situation that remarkably, suddenly, unexpectedly becomes completely chaotic or entirely out of control.
Feel free to pause the critique here.
And it's option C. All hell breaks loose refers to a situation that suddenly becomes completely chaotic or out of control.
Right. Okay, question 4. What does a person mean when they try to keep a lid on something?
Option A, to successfully, perfectly keep highly important information secret or actively keep a difficult situation well handled.
Option B, to enthusiastically, incredibly, rapidly, forcefully, permanently, entirely utilize a remarkably great initial ongoing plan.
Or option C, to completely treat an incredibly serious and remarkably deeply severe situation as if it is absolutely not important.
Take a second to pause the critique here if you need to think.
The answer is option A. To keep a lid on something means to keep information secret or keep a difficult situation well handled, like keeping a lid on a merger.
Exactly. Moving on to question 5. Which of the following describes what it means to leap to someone's defense?
Option A. To remarkably suddenly, deliberately, and forcefully entirely shatter a surprisingly heavy industrial manufacturing line.
Option B. To remarkably quickly, confidently, and actively support or genuinely properly protect someone who is being criticized.
Or option C, to entirely peacefully, independently, completely, accurately, smartly, naturally execute a complex, formal corporate plan.
Pause the critique here if you want to guess.
It's option B. To leap to someone's defense is to actively support or protect someone being criticized.
Perfect. 3 left. Question 6. What occurs when a person manages to cut corners?
Is it option A, to carefully, properly, smoothly, effectively, efficiently, strictly, safely, heavily, successfully, confidently contain secrets?
Option B. To deliberately, completely, purposefully, actively, permanently, comprehensively, efficiently ruin an ongoing major project.
Or option C, to perform a certain task highly, poorly, or extremely cheaply in order to intentionally and rapidly save time or money.
Feel free to pause the critique here.
The answer is option C. To cut corners means doing a task poorly or cheaply to save time or money.
Question 7. What does it mean if you happen to dig your heels in?
Option A. To incredibly, stubbornly, purposefully, genuinely, deeply, heavily, and firmly refuse to quickly change an opinion or decision.
Option B. To deeply, genuinely, effectively, officially, independently, thoroughly, professionally, successfully handle an urgent process.
Or option C. To intentionally, completely, successfully, firmly, officially, beautifully, properly, actively, continuously secure the system.
Go ahead and pause the critique here to think.
And the answer is option A. To dig your heels in means to incredibly stubbornly refuse to change an opinion or decision, the negative version of standing your ground.
All right, final question. What happens when someone refers to the crux of the matter?
Option A. A significantly, incredibly prolonged and intensely bitter argument between two rival political groups in the local town.
Option B. The absolute most profoundly, remarkably important central point or the main, essential, underlying core of an issue today.
Or option C. A completely, highly, entirely unexpectedly dangerous situation.
Pause the critique here for this last one.
And the final answer is option B. The crux of the matter is the absolute most profoundly important central point of an issue.
Wow, that was quite the gauntlet.
It really was. But that is exactly the kind of rigorous testing advanced learners actually require before they feel confident using these phrases in the real world. By explicitly structuring the quiz this way, repeating the phrase in the prompt and in the answer reveal, we force the learner's brain to connect the idiom directly to the highly specific, nuanced definition.
It completely eliminates the ambiguity of those open-ended breakout rooms we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Well, we've covered some deeply transformative strategies today.
We really have. To quickly recap our 3 primary areas of critique. First, we need to elevate the nuance of the vocabulary acquisition by replacing isolated definitions with comparative analysis.
Right, like showing the emotional and cultural differences between phrases like going down the drain and falling through the cracks.
Second, we need to replace open-ended breakout rooms with a highly structured multiple-choice quiz module, just like the one we demonstrated, to vigorously test comprehension and active recall.
And finally, We must seamlessly integrate the platform's AI and video call value propositions directly into the specific lesson content, transforming generic advertisements into essential learning tools. Ultimately, transitioning from a basic list of idioms to a nuanced, rigorously tested, and fully supported learning journey is what takes an advanced student from merely memorizing a textbook to truly mastering the language. We invite you to revise your lesson plan based on these actionable suggestions and submit your updated work back in for another round of feedback.